Hello there, welcome back to another review. Today I thought we'd take a look at the classic Akira. What is there to be said about this film that hasn't been said, a million times already, or Akira, however you choose to say it, made back in 1988. It's one of the most groundbreaking seminal animes of all time. It's usually one of the films sort of regarding anime. It's usually the one that a lot of people have seen, even if they haven't seen any others in terms of sort of regarding Japanese animation. Maybe sort of nowadays you're looking at films like Spirited Away, but sort of back in the day, sort of when I watched it back in the 90s, it was one of them films that even if people had sort of no big major interest in anime, they'd usually have seen Akira at some stage. That, Ghost in the Shell, Ninja Scroll was sort of the top three that you had to watch, or sort of most people had watched, but particularly Akira. Akira was the one that it was like, you got to see it, you must see it, because it was just so different to what we were used to before, and especially like in terms of animation and that kind of thing. I mean, this was a film that really made Western audiences pay attention and stand up to what sort of anime can do, and just hit it as an art form, and just how much can be done. It really did show how much for what opportunities there are with just adult animation and anime and that kind of thing. And it really was pivotal as well in just expanding and making people take notice and pushing that cyberpunk genre that not a lot of people were aware of. I mean, it had been around, but it was really made people aware of what cyberpunk was and this new film style and that kind of thing. I mean, obviously we had films like Blade Runner, that kind of thing, but Akira was the one especially that really did make it sort of just popular. It made it so everybody sort of knew about it. I went into this totally blind. I was not familiar with the source material at all. I was not familiar with the manga, so I went into it completely blind. And as mentioned, it was one of the films that I saw back in the 90s. When I must have been about 11 years old. But so we'll just be getting into Akira today. Won't go dissect it too much. Won't be going on about the legacy of it too much, because as I say, this film's had such an impact, such a influence on so many things, that we'd be here all day if we did. There's so much to say about this film. There's so much to say, but I'll just be giving you my brief sort of overview of that film. I mean, who knows? There's maybe some of you out there that have never seen Akira. There may be some of you that are still never seen it, never taken the time to watch it, that kind of thing. Maybe never even heard of it, never read the manga, that kind of thing. But I'll give you just sort of my brief opinion on the film. So regarding the plot, the film basically follows Kaneda and Tetsuo, who are in a biker gang in Neo-Tokyo after World War III. Again, this would be a very sort of brief description of the plot. And the city is rife with protests, terrorism, anti-government agenda, that kind of thing. And when they were out one evening on the streets, taking on this rival gang, sort of the clown gang, Tetsuo crashes his bike into Takashi, who has escaped from sort of this laboratory. And after this, Tetsuo begins to develop these sort of powers such as telekinesis. He starts to get quite severe headaches. He starts to lose sort of control of who he is. He starts to feel things that he didn't feel before. And he gets more and more powerful, angry, unstable. And the whole film is basically that. Obviously, Kaneda, sort of his friend in the biker gang, is trying to stop him. He's trying to so Tetsuo doesn't lose control completely. And the film near the end of the film, eventually Tetsuo goes to track down Akira, who is regarded to be sort of ultimate energy, after being told that he can sort of help him sort of control his powers or understand his powers. That is sort of a brief overview of the plot. That is I'm not doing it justice there at all. That is a real sort of skimmed over the plot in so many ways. But that's basically the bulk of what the plot. That is a very broad idea of the plot. And regarding the animation, there's some fantastic animation in this. Bearing in mind this was made in 1988 and how ahead of its time it was, not just in terms of scope, just in terms of, like I say, the ambition it had, the influence it had. This film cannot be understated. It really can't. The animation, it really is incredible. It really, not even necessarily just for the time, even now it still looks good. Some scenes in particular, like when Tetsuo whacks one of the clowns from the rival gang across the face. He sort of speeds up to him and whacks him across the face, and you really do feel the impact. You really do feel the crunch of like when this guy gets this thing whacked across his face. You really do feel this. Or like when Tetsuo loses his arm and he makes one from various metals and various bits and pieces, and the way it sort of assembles and comes together. I mean, it really, I mean, it must have been painstakingly like arduous trying to animate this, and just the artist in this did a phenomenal job. Really, it just looks absolutely fantastic. Or like another example at the end when Tetsuo just changes into sort of this huge mass of flesh and tissue. It just looks, it looks amazing, just the way he gets bigger and bigger, and the amount of detail. You know, wow. I mean, when I first saw it, I was just blown, because when I first saw it, I didn't fully understand it. I was almost a bit intimidated by this film, but I'll go into that a little bit more in a sec. There's another shot that I like where you see this guy's arm go like sort of under a motorbike. You sort of go under the wheel, and you really do feel it. Like I say, you really do feel every sort of blow, crush, like every punch, every hit, that kind of thing, especially in the first sort of 15-20 minutes of the movie. Another thing I love about this film is you really do get a sense of how deep and sprawling the city is, like when Canada and the gang are speeding through it at the beginning of the movie. And that soundtrack kicks in, you really do feel a sense of like this vast sort of metropolis, like this Neo-Tokyo that is all around you. Like you are just engulfed by this really vast, majorly big, huge city with so many people in it, all these different lives going on, and the way they're sort of speeding through on their bikes, and just the way the way that it's lit up and everything. I mean, it really does look fantastic. I've always watched this film mainly with the English dub, because I believe the dub is really well done, and that's just how I've seen it in Japanese. I've seen it in Japanese. I've watched both sort of versions of this film, but I grew up watching like the English dub, like I say, from Manga Entertainment on VHS, and I think the dub is really good. I think it's definitely one of the better dubs that was done around that time. Obviously, like I mentioned earlier, having no prior knowledge to the source material, I always felt the film was a bit overwhelming the first time I saw it. It was almost like it intimidated me. Like I say, I wasn't sure if I was missing anything, having not read the comics, not read the manga, and I know this film is definitely different from the manga, I believe. I think it doesn't include sort of the last half of the manga or the second half. I'm not too sure. I'm sure loads of people out there will correct me on that. Obviously, I'm not a humongous like Akira nerd buff, but I do have a bit of knowledge about it. But repeat viewings, I came to love this film, and you just watch it, even if you just watch it for just a work of animation, it still raises the bar so high, especially for that time. It did set the standards in so many things. Like I mentioned, you know, the idea of cyberpunk as a genre, Japanese animation, you know, just all of it, just the amount of boxes that it ticked, didn't just do it well, it took it somewhere sort of it never been before, that kind of thing. You have no idea how much this film has impacted various media and franchises as well. I mean, you only need to go to like the Wikipedia page, which I was checking out yesterday, and look at what it's influenced. I mean, to give you even a brief idea of, you know, what this film's helped to inspire, anything from Stranger Things to The Matrix, Inception, even Canada's Bikes in Ready Player One, done by Steven Spielberg. Clips from Akira played in Michael Jackson's Scream video. And it really did pave the way for anime and made people take notice, like I mentioned earlier. Even the Star Wars prequels are listed as being as influenced by this film. I mean, video games such as Metal Gear Solid, there's so much. As I say, if you ever check out the Wikipedia page for this film, there's a huge, well, I say huge list, but there's a big paragraph of just franchises and media sort of titles that are just absolute, like they're listed as being influenced by Akira. So yeah, it just can't be understated what this film did. So I don't want to go too much into the plot, because I'm not sure if all of you have seen the film. I'm not sure if it's one you haven't seen, no interest in. I don't know. I don't want to just, like I say, dissect it too much. It's just simply a brief overview of the film, just what I thought about it. Obviously, I believe it's one of them films that, even if you have no interest in anime whatsoever, even like I say, if anime is sort of not your bag, I still think it's a film that you should have in your collection. I think everybody should see it. I think it's just something that everybody needs to sit. Just like I say, even if you just took it at face value for just a work of animation, and it's watch it, because I went, like I say, I was sort of hard on myself when I first watched it, because I was sort of trying to understand it and sort of fathom what was going on, rather than just sitting back and just enjoying it for what it is. And that's what you should definitely do if you are sort of never watched this film before. Just watch it and from start to finish in one go, and just take it at face value for what it is. And that's just a brilliant work of animation. On another note, actually, the one film, talking about influences and just what this film done for, like I say, various other franchises, the one thing I did watch when I first saw it, and I thought, God, this owes so much to Akira. I don't know if any of you have ever heard or seen the film Chronicle with Michael B. Jordan, about a group of friends who sort of develop telekinetic powers. That film, especially towards the end, it's definitely got that Akira sort of vibe. There's definitely an Akira thing going on. I just remember I won't get into that film too much, but as I say, it's just these group of friends, and they start to develop these powers. One of them, obviously, a bit like Tetsuo, he just can't control his powers. If I recall, I haven't seen it for a few years now, but I remember watching that the first time, Chronicle, and I thought, yeah, that owes so much to Akira. Like that is just rife with just Akira vibes. But I might just wrap this up now, really, because I don't want to go too deep into Akira. I mean, obviously, as you know, just me talking about it, about 10 minutes or so now. I'm a huge fan. I've watched this film recently, as I do like most films I watch before I give a review of it. I watch it, make sure I'm a bit familiar with it again after, just so I can give you guys a bit more insight, rather than me just sitting here saying, yeah, I like it. Just to give you a bit more insight into the film and what I thought about it. I mean, I love it, and I think it's something that everybody should have in their collection. Everybody should see at least once. I know the director of this, I think he done a film. There was another film of his that I've never seen. I think it's Steam Boy, is that what it's called? That's one I've never seen. I have to check that out as well. But I'd say it was just giving you my brief sort of thoughts on it, really, and sort of my brief history, like my history with the film. I mean, this was made in 1988, and how ahead of its time it was in terms of animation, what can be done with the medium. Please check it out. It's not always a film everyone will love. It's not necessarily going to be a film you will fall in love with. You'll say it's absolutely like the best film you've ever seen, or you might watch it and think, okay, whatever, but not everybody will love it, but I think everyone should respect this film, if that makes sense. I think you should just, when a film comes along and it's like, it's sort of something's never been done before, or they've, like I've mentioned earlier, they do something, but they've set the bar so high, they've done it in a way that has never been done before. But like I said, I think everyone should respect this film just for what it is and what it achieves. So if you've never seen it, go and check out Akira. Obviously, I love it. Never, as I say, grew up with the manga, never read the manga or anything like that, but I still love this film. Still always watch it now and again. And check out Akira.